Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. My name is Yulia. I make videos about data science and my life in tech, and for the past 5.5 years I've been living here in the Netherlands. I now live in Amsterdam, but I first started out in Maastricht with my data science and AI study. I just made a video about what it's like to move here to study, but I also wanted to address what it's like to live in the Netherlands after you finished your degree, or if you just come here for a job directly. What can you expect from being an expat in the Netherlands? I'm going to explain a bit about the country, food, and people of the Netherlands, and then dive into some financial aspects of living here and end up with my thoughts on the country and why I think it's a really, really great place to live in. Let's get into it. Part 1, a little bit about the Netherlands. If you don't know, the Netherlands is of course a country in Western Europe that has a very rich and long history, some complicated history as well, but all in all, it's been doing really great for a really long time, and I think it's a really nice culture to be a part of. First thing you'll notice about the Netherlands is that it's a very flat country. Seriously, like people told me this before I moved here, but thinking about it and just taking the train and seeing endless fields with not a single hill or mountain in sight is something quite different. No matter what country you come from, I can guarantee you've never seen anything as flat. Which is also, of course, a good thing for the Netherlands since it leads to great agriculture. They grow a lot of vegetables and a lot of tulips. And for how small they are, they're actually a pretty big exporter of food and other goods. So yeah, it's also a very, very tiny country. It's really nudged in there between Belgium and Germany. And it's a lot smaller than a lot of its neighbors, but again, it's a huge exporter. It has a pretty big population, so as small as it is, it's a powerhouse. The Netherlands has a lot of different regions, each with their own name and culture, and actually only 2 of them have the name Holland in them. They're South and North Holland. Amsterdam, for example, is part of North Holland. So calling the country Holland is actually very incorrect and something that a lot of foreigners get wrong and a lot of Dutch people are offended by. If you think it's weird to get offended about it, the nice comparison I've heard is that it would be the same as calling the United Kingdom Scotland. Probably not the same. That being said, life in the Netherlands can vary a lot based on where you live. A small village in Limburg is going to be very different than living in Amsterdam. So when you think about living in the Netherlands or experiencing Dutch life, know that there's quite a variety on what that means to different people. There's a lot of beautiful parts of the Netherlands, even though I will say that nature isn't necessarily its strong point. There's really gorgeous tulip fields and windmills and natural forests that are really nice to hike around in or, walk on flat land in. And some really, really cute traditional cities that look untouched by time. Check out my vlog in Volendam, which is a cute fisherman village. It's a gorgeous country. Second part we're going to discuss is food in the Netherlands. If you're going to live here, you're going to eat here. Now, the Dutch have very interesting national dishes, which are a very acquired taste, I will say. For example, there's stampot, which is different types of mash with kale and usually sausage. Yes, the Dutch were eating kale way before it was cool and hip, and it's pretty good. However, I will say that the Dutch have an affinity for not really using a lot of condiments in their food, which historically is a little ironic. But yeah, expect a lot of boiled potatoes with maybe a bit of salt, which is quite different than the food I'm used to. Other national foods are haring with onions, a lot of different fried mystery meats like bitterballen and croquette, and also kaas soufflés, which are fried cheese. Just a lot of fried snacks that they usually consume in borro's, which are just like after dinner or pre-dinner snacks where people come together, have some finger food and a lot of beer. And it's very gezellig. The Dutch do, however, have really nice sweets. They invented the stroopwafels, which are amazing, especially warm at the market, but also the ones you can buy in pretty much any store. They are caramel goodness with a lot of sugar, but really, really crunchy and good. And for New Year's, they have the traditional oliebollen, which are literal oil balls. Also an acquired taste, but I know a lot of people who go crazy for them around New Year's and eat them every day. And on the other side, modern Dutch cuisine is also quite different, especially in the Amsterdam area. There's this culture of being kind of a flexitarian and going towards vegetarianism or veganism. It's a huge brunch culture, anything to do with avocado and poached eggs with Hollandaise sauce, or just any brunch food you can think of. Amsterdam is the place to be for that. Moving on to Dutch people. Dutchies are awesome. You will recognize Dutchies by how tall and blonde most of them are. Seriously, it's like looking up all the time. Back in Romania, I was considered very tall at about 174, but here almost everyone is bigger than me, which is quite a big difference. And the blonde thing, yes, a lot of Dutch people are naturally blonde, which is quite different from, again, the example of Romania, where most people have naturally darker hair or almost black, and it's more rare to be a natural blonde. The Dutchies are also very modern. For example, they're all pretty tech savvy. A lot of people will have internet and know how to use a computer, no matter what age they are. So it's not like, oh, even my mother could understand it. Everyone's mother knows how to use the internet here, which may or may not be different from where you come from. Everyone's also very active. You will see everyone biking around, especially older people, which I thought was awesome, that they're not only going out and about and having hobbies of their own, they're biking around the city with no worries in the world, sometimes even with their grandchildren on the back of their bike. You'll also see mothers with this little wooden crates in front of the bikes, biking with maybe 3 toddlers at a time. Just everyone bikes everywhere. They all also do a lot of sports, primarily field hockey. And the Dutch are of course very tolerant, which I think almost everyone knows about them. They were the first country to legalize gay marriage, and weed is of course legal here in all of the coffee shops around the country, although mainly in Amsterdam you can get in and smoke a joint and it's totally fine. Now let's get into the serious stuff, having a job in the Netherlands. If you're an EU citizen, it's really easy to come here, register, and start living and working here. As a non-EU citizen, the process may be a bit more complicated, but it's still very possible as long as your job is willing to go through the process of hiring a non-EU citizen. Some initial mentions about having a job here. It's very normal here to do a bachelor degree and a master immediately after, so you only really complete your education after your graduate degree. So just expect that most people will have that, and that's kind of what you'll be competing with for jobs. I personally don't have a master's degree and it's worked out for me, but I am aware that it's kind of the exception. If you want to find a job here, most resources are LinkedIn or Glassdoor, which is another Dutch website where you can also compare salaries for different types of jobs and get an idea of what you could earn. You can also just look up individual companies and see if they have vacancies on their websites, of course. Now, something that maybe a lot of you may have heard about abroad, the Dutch tax system. The Netherlands has quite big taxes, I guess, compared to other countries, but it has a box system where you don't have the same tax applied to your entire income, which may be a bit confusing. It used to be 3 brackets, but now it's only 2 to make it a bit simpler. So if you say earn 100,000 euros a year, your first 68,500 will be taxed at 37%, and then the remaining 100 will be taxed at 49.5%. So yes, that is an almost 50% tax, but it's not applied over the entirety of your salary. But you will see where your taxes are going in the education system and health system and infrastructure and how clean everything is. There's, you're really getting the benefits out of it. At least I think so. You may be, of course, free to disagree, but I'm fine with the tax system as is. When I was studying, I benefited from different toeslags or subsidies for students or people who didn't earn so much. So I really see how it all goes around. You can check out my Studying in the Netherlands video for more details on that. Work-life balance in the Netherlands is very nice and relaxed, I would say. You get about 20 to 25 holiday days a year, and then on top of that, all the national holidays which seem to be all the time, like the King's Day is celebrated and has a day off, and some religious holidays as well. You would have another day off with those as well. So it ends up being maybe closer to 30 days off in the year. You also have an 8% holiday bonus that everyone gets. So around May, I think, you get 8% of your salary just paid out to you to go have a nice holiday. And this is for every job in the Netherlands. Some other perks, which depend on the employee, are bonuses for performance and maybe a 13th month. Those are quite common, but they're not mandatory to get. It's also pretty relaxed here. Other than having so many holiday days, I think everyone who does work a 9 to 5 will leave work at 5, with exceptions of course, but it's quite common to just go home at 5 sharp and not look at your work emails or get any calls from work anymore. Unless of course you have flexible work hours, in which case you can just work whenever you feel like it's the most productive, as long as you get your work done. I was quite surprised by this in the beginning, if I was just focused on my work and not looking up from my laptop, and then it became like 5:30 and I would look up and the office would just be empty. So I also just hurried off home and got used to leaving pretty early as well. If you work later, you will just find the cleaning lady coming in and starting to vacuum around you. So it's really discouraged to put in crazy hours or to go above what is expected from you. Another nice thing is that hierarchy here is quite flat, so you won't find super confusing corporate charts of having 7 managers above you. It's usually quite easy to know who your boss is, and even so, I think calling them boss is quite weird. They will be like your manager, but I think everyone's quite direct to each other, and it's very easy to talk above your station, so to say. It feels even weird mentioning something like that. Basically, pretty much everyone is encouraged to share their opinion and their initiatives, and because Dutch people are super direct, they may just shut you down and say, no, that's a bad idea, but not in the way that you shouldn't, bring up another idea again. You'll just know what everyone's thinking, and I think that's really nice that an intern and a CEO can have a conversation and they may ask you what your opinion is or something. So it's a very flat hierarchy, not so much stress and corporate structure around, just everyone in the office working together towards their goals, which I think is a very nice environment. So if you manage to get a job in the Netherlands, what are some costs that you may expect to pay with the money you have left over after taxes? Number 1 will be rent or mortgage if you buy a house. You can check out Funda for all the properties in the Netherlands and seeing how much rent is in different regions. Be warned, Amsterdam is insane. There's nothing quite comparable to it. Of course, Rotterdam or Utrecht or The Hague can also be quite expensive, but I think Amsterdam takes the crown jewel for unreasonable amounts of rent. Even for Dutch people, it's quite a problem these days. There's not enough housing, so people who maybe were born and raised in Amsterdam might have to move out just because they can't afford to live there anymore, which is indeed quite a problem. You do need a pretty good salary to comfortably live in Amsterdam, but it is doable. To give an example, an apartment can be 1,000 to 1,500 euros for a single person or a couple. Depends where in Amsterdam it is. If you go outside of the ring, it will be cheaper, but not by that much. Again, check out Funda for a pretty good overview of what it would cost for you. Other than that, you of course have to pay for food. There's this really nice website that kind of explains examples of how much a loaf of bread or milk or beer in a pub will cost you, so you can use that to make an estimate for your lifestyle. Above that, you will also have some municipal taxes for trash collection and sewage and clean water that you should also account for. And of course, your actual utilities like water, electricity, and gas. You can check everything out on that website and see an estimate for your situation. For traveling, a lot of people use public transport. It's really easy to get to work either by bike or by train or by tram. So I don't think so many people drive. I don't have a car, and most of the people I know don't have a car, but of course that's also an option. I just don't know so much about it. When it comes to public transport, you get an OV chip card, which is your travel card that works with all forms of transportation in the country. You can charge it up and do a pay-as-you-go for every ride. It will count when you check in and check out of a public transportation, how long your journey was, and then see how much it costs. Or you can get unlimited subscriptions for every month, which are usually better if you commute every day, and you can get different discounts as well. So your budget can really vary based on how you live and how much you earn and where you live. Again, if you live in a village in the south or in the north and you live in Amsterdam, those are completely different calculations, so you can figure that out for yourself. But just to give a ballpark number, since I'm sure people will comment about it, I think you can live in Amsterdam with 1,500 to 2,000 euros. Some people will deal with a lot less or a lot more, of course, but that seems like a good assumption or a good estimate. So yeah, I hope you found this useful if you're thinking about living here. Check out some of my other videos if you're interested in those topics. And yeah, best of luck with whatever path you have in life. See you in the next video. Bye!